Good morning, my name's Ian Nettleton. Welcome to the session. This is part of this year's Young Norfolk Arts Festival. What we're going to be looking at in the next half hour is how to storyboard a film. You may have done storyboarding at school, perhaps, or at home. And we're going to be doing this with My Neighbour Totoro in mind, which you'll hopefully be able to watch after this presentation. So, what is storyboarding? Well, you may, as I say, you may have done this at school, but it's a little bit like comics. I don't know if anyone reads The Phoenix, or maybe the Beano, or maybe you've read Spider-Man, something like that. Storyboarding is like a kind of comic version of a film, and what people who make films do, first of all, is they draw the story onto storyboards before they actually film them. So, as I say, it's a kind of like a comic. I've got an example. This is a comic I produced a while ago. This is Bad Snowman. You'll see, if you look here, this character is not a good person at all. He takes off the head of a snowman here, runs along, kicks it onto a chimney pot. But every panel kind of moves the story on. You'll see here, this is one of the important parts of the story, where the bad snowman comes along, finds a little snowman. What does he do? Squishes him. And then we cut to a boy being disturbed. He wakes up, puts his light on, opens the window and tells the snowman off, throws a snowball on his head. And so things start to go in the right direction, and the snowman has to rebuild the little snowman. And this is an important part of my story, because at this point the snowman has to think about what he's doing. He's been a bad snowman, he has to become a good snowman. So that's part of the story. As I say, this morning, before you watch My Neighbour Totoro, what I'm going to ask you to do is three things. I'm going to give you some things to have a go at after this session is over. The first thing I'd like you to have a go at is creating a character, just like Bad Snowman or Totoro. Then I'm going to ask you to have a go at creating a story idea. The beginning of a story, if you like, and then I'm going to ask you to have a go at storyboarding it, and I'll give you some advice on how to storyboard a little later on. Okay. So, characters. The main characters in My Neighbour Totoro are two girls. There is Satsuki, who's an 11-year-old girl, and then there's Mei, who is her 4-year-old sister. May's the younger sister. Now this is May over here, as you can see. I sent off to Japan for this. It took about a month to get here, but there's a little plastic figure, so you'll meet her when you watch the film. May and her sister, they get along most of the time, but sometimes they don't. And I don't know if you've got a brother or a sister, a younger one or an older one, or a friend. They can be great fun to play with, but they can be really annoying, can't they? I've got two daughters, and they get on sometimes, and then next thing you know, they're fighting. That's what happens, isn't it? Now, every story needs characters, and they usually need a few things. Every character needs, well, first of all, there's their characteristics. So, what kind of person they are? Do they get annoyed really easily? Are they quite imaginative? But there are two things that we always look for in characters. One is that a character wants something. It has something it wants to get hold of or find or whatever. And then there's something that a character needs, which is usually something that's a bit more emotional. So in My Neighbour Totoro, we've got Mei, and Mei is an adventurous, curious and accepting little girl. So and it's because of her that we first meet Totoro, as you'll see in the film. Satsuki, now, she's a bit more of a complex character. She wants her mother back. In the story, the mother is absent most of the time. She's in hospital and she's ill. So everything has been kind of disrupted. There's just two girls with their father. But what she needs to do is she needs to believe in the spirit world. She needs to believe in amazing things that are all around her. And it's her little sister that helps her find out these amazing things. And her goal in the end is to kind of try and make things better for her mother, to make her mother well again. And she does that in a way by bringing her a corn cob. That may not make sense, but you'll see when you watch the film. There are other characters though in the film. Obviously there is Totoro. Now here's another whoops a daisy. There we go. There's one of my little plastic figures there. That's Totoro, all the way from Japan. And here's another one. Actually, that's a little Totoro. And there's one of his little friends there, as you can see. There you go. This Totoro here is a backpack. There you go. So, and there is the cat bus. Now, the cat bus is quite interesting. I love the cat bus. And if you've been on a bus, but the cat bus was probably inspired by the cat in Alice in Wonderland and Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. The Cheshire Cat who sits in a tree and talks to Alice and then slowly starts to disappear. And if you look at this cat, and then if you look at the cat in the film, and here it is, here's the cat bus, you can see it's quite similar actually. In fact, it's even in a tree in this picture. There's no reason why you shouldn't base your characters on characters that already exist, on characters in your comics or in films you've seen. There's no reason why you shouldn't. This is what's exciting about filmmaking. You take lots of different things and put them together. Okay, so the first exercise, creating a character. So when you create a character, you may want to think about who's the main character going to be. It's not unusual to put yourself in the story, and there's no reason why you shouldn't. The person who created My Neighbor Totoro, a man called Miyazaki, his mother was ill for a number of years, so he's put some of his story into when he was a child and his mother was ill. My character is going to be called Finn, I've decided. Now, Finn is kind of a bit like me when I was, I don't know, 7 or 8. Here he is. I'm just going to draw him here. Now, Finn is quite bad-tempered. I wasn't all that bad-tempered, but I did used to get a bit cross. Now, in Finn's story, his mother isn't around. When I was a boy, my mother wasn't around, and so my father had to bring me up. So Finn is not very happy about this. I wasn't very happy about it at the time. She was still alive, don't worry about that. But she wasn't around. So here's Finn. He is a bit cross. That's how he starts this story. There he is. Doesn't look that much like me. And he wears a stripy top like this. Now, what he wants is he doesn't fit in that well at school. His name is Finn. He doesn't fit in that well at school, so he wants people to like him. He wants to be liked. Who doesn't want to be liked? But what he needs to do is to like himself. In my story, he doesn't. He's cross all the time, and he's not happy. He doesn't think he's very good at school, not very good at lessons, things like that. A bit like me when I was at school. Now, that's one of the characters. One of the things about fantasy, and Totoro is a fantasy, is that the stories bring the real and the imagined together. So you've got a character, Finn. His mother's not at home. He's been brought up by his father, who's very busy. And he meets a character who I am going to call the Freak. Now, the Freak is, here we go. I haven't thought that hard about this, I have to say. I'm sure you can come up with a much better character than I have. But this is the Freak, and the Freak lives in the woods near Finn's house. Now, I realised when I started creating this character, the Freak is a bit cross as well, so actually you get on quite well, I think, with Finn. The Freak lives in the woods. I live near a heath, and so that's where I'm going to base my story. We often go down to often go off to the heath, where all the trees are on that, and I can imagine there'll be some creatures that don't come out during the day, and that's what the Freak is. The Freak. There we go. Sorry about my writing, but there you go. The Freak. He's the fantasy character who Finn discovers. Okay, so those are my two characters. That's the first thing I want you to do, is to come up with a character or two. The second thing is to come up with a story. You got your characters, what's going to happen? A story is something that happens to someone, and it's how that character reacts that makes the story. Something changes, and usually stories start with a change. In My Neighbor Totoro, the girls and their father arrive at a new house, so that's the first thing, that's the first change. In my story, I've decided Finn and his dad moved to a house on a hill, away from everybody, so he's got no friends. When I was 6 years old, my father used to take me out, and he used to go and photograph bridges. He used to take me with him to work. And I said, I've been stung. I remember one time where all this undergrowth was around and all this kind of stuff. And I got stung. And he said, no, no, you haven't been stung. I said, I have. And I got really cross with my dad. He didn't believe me. So I had to, excuse this, but I had to take my trousers down. And there was a wasp and a hornet down my trouser leg. One of them had stung me. I was cross that my dad didn't believe me, and I was cross because I'd been stung. And I ran across the road and got into the car. So me and my dad sometimes didn't always get on. In Finding Nemo, if you've seen the film Finding Nemo, the father fish, he's worried about the little fish Nemo going off too far away where it might not be safe. And that's based on what happened to the character, the person who wrote the story. What happened there was that the man who wrote the story, he had his son, he was with his son at a park, and he was worried that his son would go off and get hurt. So he's overprotective, and that's what Finding Nemo was all about. His father has to allow him to explore, to go out into the world a little bit more as he gets older, and that's what that's all about. So we take stories from real life. Okay, so in my story, Finn is cross with his dad, just like I was cross with my dad. What I've decided is he runs off. He's meant to be going to school, but he runs off into the woods where he meets the freak under a bridge, because my dad was taking photographs. I was like, okay, so that's my story. So what I'd like you to do is think about something that happened to you. It might be an accident. It might be a time when you got told off and you were cross. It might be a funny thing that happened to you. Doesn't matter what it is. It could just be a small incident, a small moment. I'd like you to take that and think how you could turn that into a story. Okay. That's the second exercise. Now the third part of this exercise is where we move on to the storyboarding. And to say, storyboards are what filmmakers use before they ever get around to actually filming the films or drawing them when they're making animated films. So they turn their ideas into storyboards first. Now, I've got a few pages from My Neighbor Totoro you might like to have a look at. This is a scene from Totoro where the girls are waiting at a bus stop and they find the big Totoro character standing next to them. And then we get a close-up on the character Totoro's face, and then we get a close-up of the girl's face too. I've got another series of storyboards that show at the point where the cat bus first turns up. I don't know if you can see this. Here there we go. And you'll see that the images change. First of all, we've got a close-up of the girls. There's Mei, and there's Satsuki. And then off in the distance we get the cat bus running through the woods, along the road. Then it gets closer and closer until we get very close up. The face fills the whole screen. It's a little bit like in my comic strip where the Bad Snowman, where we get a little bit closer when he's starting to feel bad about what he's done, because he has to change. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to draw some of what I call one of the turning points in my film, which is about Finn and the Freak. Actually, that's quite a good title. I just thought that. Finn and the Freak. It's where he meets the Freak in the woodlands. So here we go. Now we've got some storyboards that you can download after you've watched the film. These are the usual kind of storyboards they have. As you'll see, you have an area that you can draw, and then here you write maybe a little bit of information about it. You may even put some dialogue in there. Okay, so, and here are a few types of shots that you can use. So first of all, Finn and his father have moved to a house on a hill. They're isolated. They're out of the way. Now I took some of that idea, I have to say, from James and the Giant Peach, my favourite book when I was a kid. And of course, James has to go and live in a house with his aunt Sponge and Spiker, I think it is. I'm sure you've probably read it. And if you haven't, I recommend it. Okay, so now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to draw the house. There's a bit of smoke coming out of the... it's not very environmentally friendly, is it? Here are the woods. Now I'm drawing them really kind of very simply. You can have stick characters and that. You don't have to be a great artist or anything like that to do storyboards, as long as you can see what's happening. Here's the hill. There we go. Okay, and there's another hill here. So this is where he lives with his father. Now, if you were going to open a film, the beginning of a film, you might start with what's called an establishing shot. And that's what this is called, I guess, an establishing shot. That's where we show the world of the story. So the woods, the house, it's all there. That's the beginning of it. Now what I'm going to move on to is what you might call a wide shot. And I've got Finn here. That's his hair, kind of blowing side. Okay, Finn starts. We start the story with Finn running. Okay, there he is. Why is he running? So you raise questions. You think, why is this person running? There he is. And I'll make it quite exaggerated. Because mine is, after all, a cartoon. He's running down the hill. There we go. I'm sure you can do better than this. Little shadow there. Okay, and that's what we call a wide shot, where you get quite a distance from the main character. Then Finn goes into the woods. So in the next shot, I think what we'll have is we'll get closer up to what Finn looks like in my film. Finn comes along into the woods and he sees something moving. Okay, so this is what's called a medium shot. It's like from the trousers upwards, or the skirt to the head, if you like, where you get to see most of the character, not all the legs, but most of them, most of the legs, if you like. So here's Finn. He's been really cross, but suddenly he's slightly bewildered. As I say, you don't have to be a great artist. I'm certainly not. But something surprises him, and it's one of those great turning points. He stops running. And here he is, standing, looking into the foliage. Something has moved. He's not sure what it is. I don't know if during lockdown you've had this, but we've spent a lot of time in the garden, and you get a lot of things moving. We've got frogs just over there. So there he is, with his stripy top. Like Dennis the Menace kind of top. So that's a medium shot. If you want to make it a little bit more interesting, you can slowly move closer to the character. So if that's a medium shot, then maybe we'll have a that's medium wide shot, sorry. Then the next one might be a medium shot. So let's get a bit closer. So let's say that the frame goes like this. So we get closer still. This is the frame. So we get to see that much of him. And then we get even closer as we start to get his reaction. You might do this if a person's being thoughtful or upset. We want to see what they look like. So, what they're feeling on their face. So we get even closer. And then I'm going to finish up with what's called an extreme close-up. And this is just like when you got the cat bus, and the cat, its face takes up the whole screen. Here is an extreme close-up. We're seeing how Finn feels. He's not looking cross anymore at all. In fact, he's utterly surprised. Something has come along to disrupt his world, to surprise him, slightly scare him. The cat bus is quite scary. Totro's massive. When you watch the film, you'll see what I mean. When May first meets Totoro, he's got a massive mouth, big teeth. It's kind of scary, but it's okay. That's what's called an extreme close-up. And then, well, all we're seeing are his reactions. So the next thing we want to do is see what he's seeing. In this case, it's going to be a picture of the freak. Now, the freak, you can base your fantasy character, if you're going to have a fantasy character, on anything you want. Maybe you've got a cat. What's that film called now? How to Train Your Dragon. If you've watched How to Train Your Dragon, it's not just a dragon. You can tell that it's based on an animal. Now, you may have ideas on this. I'm pretty certain that it's a cat. It's very similar to a cat. Totoro is somewhere between an owl and a cat. There's also a tree spirit, or a spirit of nature. So my character is a little bit based on a character. I can't remember what he was called. Was it Hegarty or something like that? In Rupert the Bear, there was a character who had hair that was made of branches and that. So I've stolen the idea. But I'm sure Alfred Bestall, who illustrated Rupert Bear for many years, won't mind. So Hegarty. Now, my character is just as scared, my fantasy character, just as scared and surprised as Finn is, because he's lived in the forest for a long, long time and no one's ever seen him until today. So it's a turning point for him too. There he is, really surprised. And they both basically go, "Wah!" like that, because they're pretty terrified of seeing each other. So that's the beginning of my story. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this session. I've certainly enjoyed doing all the drawing and coming up with a story idea. So yeah, if you'd like to have a go at the 3 exercises, the first one is coming up with a character, And the character can be you, it could be a fantasy character, maybe an animal that you've got in the house, or a snail even, or a frog. Doesn't matter what it is. So that's the first thing, a character. The second thing is to come up with a story. The story could be something that's based on something that's happened to you, just a small incident if you like. And the final thing, of course, is coming up with the storyboards. We'd love to see your drawings and your storyboards. If you want to send them to the festival, then they'll post them on their site, so the details will appear on the screen, I think. Feel free to send them to the festival team, or why not post them on social media, on Twitter, and be able to see them there. Great. Well, again, I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope you enjoy the film. My Neighbor Totoro is, I have to say, my favourite animated film, and it's my daughter's favourite film too. So enjoy it, and you'll be seeing this character pretty soon.
Hurry up, May. It's gonna rain.
Okay.
Are you off to meet your dad at the bus stop?
Yes, he forgot his umbrella. It's okay, May. He'll be here soon. Totoro?
Thank you for watching over May and making us feel so welcome here. Please continue to look after us.
Please continue to look after us.
Last one home's a rotten egg.